Hi, I'm Joe Shaffer. I'm a comedian from Texas, and then I lived in Brisbane for a long time, and then now I live in Sydney. I'm a boy of many faces. The first time I did comedy was on stage at the Velveeta Room in Austin, Texas, and it was like 50 people on stage, or 50 people were on the lineup, and I would have been, like 48. And so I performed to no one and bombed epically. And then the next time was okay, and then bombing again for 3 months, and then finally we saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And for some reason, I kept going, and here we are, bombing to this day. Oh man, I had a lot of jobs. So I worked as a liquor rep. That was my last pre-comedy job. I worked as a liquor rep. So I was in Austin, Texas, and I would go to liquor stores and say, "Hey, do you want more liquor?" And they said yes. And so that was the job. Not too bad, not too bad. And then I worked as a video game tester. I used to write real estate courses. I worked in a pipe shop. Like I sold like bongs. You weren't supposed to call them bongs. You call them water pipes. I worked at a video store when I was a teenager. I've done all kinds of things, baby. Making people laugh and being the best part of their week, hopefully. Oh, it's so boring. Whatever. I'll tell you about a night that I bombed a sit-down gig. So the owner was there doing the sound, and we were doing a Christmas show. All right, we were doing a Christmas show, and the host, and so people were just not paying attention. It was all of the people. There was like however many corporate bookings. Let's say 5 huge corporate bookings for like 200, 300 people. The host was fine. As fine as you could be to a crowd that wasn't paying attention. And then I went out there as a very pretty green comic, and I was supposed to do 25 to 30 minutes, and I went out there and just ate pure shit for 25 minutes, and just barely a whimper out of anyone for all that time. And of course, it's in front of the owner of the club, and just died so epically. And then at the end, he came up to me and was like, "Look, you never gave up, and I respect you." I love Paul F. Tompkins the most. He's not really much of a stand-up these days. He's more of like a podcast weirdo. But he wears a suit. He's a fancy guy. He can do so many characters. I think he's so funny. The highlight of my career so far was this weekend here at the Sit Down Comedy Club with all of you. No, it's actually, honestly, that I'm bullshitting, but it's great to come back to Sit Down, because this is, it might not be the club where I started, but it was like definitely one of the clubs that shaped me for a long time. I've got several of those now, and so there's always people that I owe a lot to. It's important to remember everything that you've come through. But yeah, I've performed. I've gotten to have a lot of highlights, and it's important to try and focus on those. But like, I've gotten to go on fancy tours, and it's always great to come back to a place like this and have done the kind of stuff that I'm doing now, to have worked my way up, and here I am making the medium bucks. How's comedy changed during my career? I think one thing that's really died off, comedy used to be, I think in the mid 2000s, comedy was really edgy. People were really into like edgy comedy, and I think that still existed a little bit when I first started at the end of the 2000s or 2010. I can't remember when I started comedy anymore. I'm about 9 years in. So back then there was still some edgy stuff, and I was trying to be an edgy boy, and now I think that's really died off for the most part, and I try to be like a very happy and empowering comic. And so a lot of times now when I hear edgy stuff, I'm just like, ugh, what are you trying to do? It's like, you have to remember that these people, not only have they paid to come to see the show, but they've given up their night, and they've had to work all week, and they're giving you that night, and that's actually probably more valuable than the money that they've paid. And if you're gonna like chuck a bunch of edgy shit in their face, I probably shouldn't swear. If you're gonna chuck a bunch of edgy business in their face, then you're really doing them a disservice with their evening. Their time is valuable, and you gotta respect it. I try to make them feel as good as possible about their lives and what they're doing right at this moment. And I hope that I'm able to do that all the time. I think that stage time is more important than writing. Obviously, you have to write jokes, but it's also getting out there and performing is more important. If you think about like when someone writes a movie, and then there's the writer, director, screenwriters, all that stuff that comes through. You never know who wrote the movie, even if they were a genius writer. You always know the actors, maybe the director, stuff like that. You hardly ever know the writers. So I think the actual end performance ends up being more important than the writing itself. So you still need great jokes, but the stage presence is always going to be more important. And I think it's important, especially early on when you're like a 5-minute person, find a joke, a couple of jokes, something that really lets the crowd feel like they're getting to know you, because you've got to stand out from a lineup of like 12 people, and odds are good that even if they loved you, they won't necessarily remember your name, but they need to be able to be like, oh, that's so-and-so person. So figure out something that makes you stand out from everybody else, write some jokes about that, and I think that'll really get you off to a nice start. Next thing for me in comedy, I would love it if I could get a show on TV. I've got a couple of things in mind, but nothing solid yet. But that would be great. I think that's a great way to really let a lot of people see you and to show the people kind of stuff that you want them to see. TV is still a great medium, even if it's on the internet, that kind of thing. Obviously, the internet's taking it all over. I'm an old man. The internet's taking over. But yeah, that's I think that would be the next big thing that I would be looking forward to. Thanks everybody for watching. I'm at Joe Shaffer on all social medias, so check those out. And other than that, just follow your hearts, achieve all your dreams. Goodbye.